Before we begin today's story, let us know in the comment section what time and part of the world you are listening from. Also, if you enjoy today's story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin. The morning sun cast long shadows across the parking lot as Kayla Matthews hurried toward her car, her heels clicking against the concrete in a rhythmic staccato that matched her racing heart. At 34, she carried herself with the grace of someone who had learned to dance between life's challenges while never missing a step. Her dark curls, usually perfectly styled, had a few rebellious strands that had escaped their confines during her rushed morning routine, a testament to the chaos of single motherhood. Today wasn't just any Monday. The presentation she'd spent weeks perfecting was safely tucked into her leather briefcase, along with the dreams and aspirations she'd carefully cultivated over her 12 years at Crawford & Associates. As one of the few women of color in senior positions, Kayla had learned early that excellence wasn't just a goal, it was a requirement. Each design she created, each project she led, carried the weight of not just her own aspirations, but the hopes of those who would follow in her footsteps. "Jackie, honey, did you remember your calculus homework?" She spoke into her phone, juggling her briefcase and car keys. Her 15-year-old daughter's voice came through, tinged with teenage exasperation. "Yes, Mom, and my history essay and my lunch money. I'm not 10 anymore, you know." Kayla smiled, remembering the little girl who used to need reminders for everything. "I know, baby. Old habits die hard. Have a great day at Brighton Prep. Love you." "Love you too, Mom. Knock 'em dead at your presentation." Ending the call, Kayla reached her car, only to stop dead in her tracks. A sleek black Mercedes was parked at an angle that effectively blocked her exit. Her heart sank as she checked her watch. 8:45. Her presentation was at 9:30, and in Atlanta's morning traffic, she needed every minute of that buffer time. Taking a deep breath, she dialed building security. 5 minutes passed, then 80. 15 agonizing minutes ticked by as she paced, watching her carefully planned morning crumble. When a tall figure finally appeared, walking unhurriedly across the parking lot while engaged in what seemed to be an intense phone conversation, Kayla felt her blood pressure rise. The man, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than her monthly mortgage payment, moved with the kind of confidence that bordered on arrogance. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his posture spoke of privilege, and his complete lack of urgency made Kayla's fingers curl into fists. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. The man held up one finger in the universal "wait a minute" gesture, continuing his phone conversation as he approached his car. "Oh, hell no." Kayla stepped directly into his path, her 5'7" frame, 5'10" in her power heels, becoming an immovable obstacle. "I have been waiting for 15 minutes, she enunciated clearly, loud enough to be heard over his phone call. "Your car is blocking mine, and I have an important meeting to get to." The man, who she would later learn was Xander James, CEO of Phoenix Hospitality Group, finally looked at her. His eyes, a striking shade of green, swept over her in a dismissive glance that made her want to scream. Without a word, he ended his call, pressed his key fob, and slid into his Mercedes. The car purred to life and backed away smoothly, leaving Kayla standing there, her carefully maintained professional composure cracking under the weight of her fury. As she watched his taillights disappear around the corner, she made a mental note to never forget that face, the face of entitlement and inconsideration personified. Little did she know, fate had other plans. 1 week later, Kayla's phone rang during a client meeting. Seeing Brighton Prep's number flash across her screen sent a chill down her spine. As a single mother, these calls always triggered her worst fears. Excusing herself, she answered to learn that her typically well-behaved daughter had been involved in an incident requiring immediate parental attention. 45 minutes later, Kayla walked into the principal's office and felt her world tilt on its axis. There, sitting in one of the leather chairs with the same entitled posture she remembered from the parking lot, was the Mercedes owner. He looked equally shocked to see her, his green eyes widening slightly before his expression settled into something unreadable. "Ms. Matthews, Mr. James, thank you both for coming so quickly," Principal Anderson began, her voice carrying the practiced calm of someone who had mediated numerous parent conferences. "We have a situation involving Jackie and Jeremy that requires our immediate attention." Kayla's eyes darted to where Jackie sat, her daughter's usually confident posture diminished, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Beside her sat a boy with the same green eyes as his father, his expression a mirror of Jackie's discomfort. "Your children were caught skipping their fourth period classes today," Principal Anderson continued. "They were found in the art room, where an altercation with another student led to some damaged supplies and a rather heated exchange. I find it hard to believe that Jeremy would instigate such a situation." Xander James spoke up, his voice carrying the same smooth confidence that had infuriated Kayla in the parking lot. "He's never had disciplinary issues before, perhaps." "Are you suggesting my daughter is to blame?" Kayla interrupted, her protective instincts flaring. "Because Jackie has an exemplary record at her previous school and has maintained straight A's since transferring to Brighton Prep. Your son is just as capable of making mistakes as any other teenager, Mr. James. Your wealth doesn't make him infallible." "Parents, please," Principal Anderson intervened, her tone firmer now. "This isn't about assigning blame. Both students were equally involved, and both will face the same consequences. 2 days of after-school detention and helping to reorganize the art room." As the adults continued their discussion, Jackie and Jeremy exchanged glances loaded with unspoken communication. Their parents' heated exchange seemed to mirror their own earlier confrontation, though for very different reasons. Later that evening, in 2 separate households, the truth emerged. In the Matthews' cozy apartment, over a dinner of takeout Chinese food, Jackie finally opened up. "Jeremy's actually really nice, Mom," she said, pushing her rice around with her chopsticks. "When I transferred here mid-semester, he was one of the few people who went out of his way to make me feel welcome. The art project, it was supposed to be a surprise for the school fundraiser. We were trying to do something good." Meanwhile, in the James's expansive townhouse, Jeremy confessed to his father. "I was the one who convinced Jackie to skip class," he admitted, his father's surprised expression making him rush to explain. "She's amazing at art, Dad. We were working on this installation piece about unity and diversity. When Marcus threatened to tell on us, I lost my temper. Jackie was actually trying to calm everything down." Both parents found themselves facing uncomfortable truths about their own prejudices and assumptions. Kayla remembered the dismissive man from the parking lot and realized she'd been quick to transfer those negative feelings to his son. Xander, sitting in his home office later that night, recalled the fierce woman who had confronted him and recognized that his defensive reaction at the school had more to do with his own insecurities as a single parent than any real concern about Jeremy's character. Their children, it seemed, had managed to see past the barriers that adults so often constructed. As both parents lay awake that night, they couldn't help but wonder what else they might have misjudged about each other. What they didn't know was that this was just the beginning of a story that would challenge everything they thought they knew about first impressions, second chances, and the unexpected ways that love can enter one's life, even through the most antagonistic of beginnings. 2 weeks after the school incident, Kayla stood in the elevator of Crawford & Associates, mentally reviewing her presentation for the Villa Aurora project. This boutique luxury hotel development could be the breakthrough that would cement her position as a leading architect in Atlanta's competitive design scene. She'd poured her heart into every detail, creating spaces that married luxury with comfort, modernity with timeless elegance. The elevator doors opened to the conference room floor, and Kayla's confident stride carried her toward the meeting room. Through the glass walls, she could see several people already seated, including her firm's partners. As she pushed open the door, her carefully constructed professional facade cracked for just a moment. There, at the head of the table, sat Xander James. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, surprise flickered across his usually composed features. Kayla felt her heart rate accelerate, but years of experience in male-dominated boardrooms had taught her to maintain her composure. She smoothly took her position at the presentation end of the table, connecting her laptop to the projector with steady hands that betrayed none of her inner turmoil. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice clear and confident. "Today, I'll be presenting our vision for Villa Aurora, a property that we believe will redefine luxury hospitality in Atlanta." As she moved through her presentation, Kayla found herself hyper-aware of Xander's presence, his intense focus on her slides, the way he leaned forward slightly when she discussed the sustainable design elements, the thoughtful nod when she explained the cultural influences woven into the architecture. It all registered with crystal clarity. "The central courtyard," she explained, pulling up a detailed 3D rendering, "draws inspiration from traditional Mediterranean villas while incorporating modern elements. The space transforms from a serene retreat during day to an intimate gathering space at night, with programmable lighting that follows the natural rhythms of the sun. What about the maintenance costs for such an elaborate system?" Xander's voice cut through the room, professional but carrying an edge of challenge. "Beauty is important, but practicality is essential." Kayla met his gaze steadily. "We've actually conducted a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis." She smoothly transitioned to a detailed breakdown of operating costs, sustainability metrics, and projected energy savings. "The initial investment is higher, but the system pays for itself within 5 years while providing an unmatched guest experience." Slight smile tugged at the corner of Xander's mouth. Was that approval? The rest of the presentation continued with similar exchanges, a dance of challenge and response that felt oddly exhilarating. Kayla found herself rising to each question, her passion for the project evident in every detailed answer. After the meeting concluded and the room began to clear, Xander approached her desk where she was gathering her materials. "Matthews, do you have a moment?" Kayla straightened, bracing herself. "Of course, Mr. James." Once they were alone, something in his demeanor shifted. The corporate mask slipped slightly, revealing a hint of uncertainty that seemed at odds with his usual confidence. "I owe you an apology," he began, running a hand through his dark hair. "Several, actually." Kayla's surprise must have shown on her face because he continued quickly. "That day in the parking lot, I had just received a call about my mother being hospitalized. It doesn't excuse my behavior, but I wasn't exactly myself, and at the school, I was..." He paused, searching for words. "I was projecting my own insecurities as a single parent." The vulnerability in his admission caught her off guard. "Your mother, is she okay?" "She is now, thank you." He smiled slightly. "Minor surgery, but when you've lost one parent already, any health scare with the other becomes..." He trailed off, and Kayla found herself nodding in understanding. "I get it," she said softly. "When Jackie had appendicitis last year, I was a mess. Doing this alone, it's terrifying," he supplied, and their eyes met in shared understanding. That conversation marked a turning point. Over the next few weeks, as they worked closely on the Villa Aurora project, Kayla began to see different facets of Xander James. In project meetings, she noticed how he listened intently to every team member, not just the senior staff. He asked thoughtful questions that often led to innovative solutions, and his passion for creating meaningful spaces matched her own. One evening, as they reviewed design modifications in his office, the conversation drifted to their children. "Jeremy mentioned that Jackie's helping him with his art portfolio," Xander said, leaning back in his chair. "He's always been interested in art, but I never quite knew how to nurture it. His mother was the artistic one." Kayla looked up from her sketches. "How long has she been gone?" 5 years now. Cancer." His voice carried the weight of old grief. "Jeremy was 10. Some days, I still feel like I'm fumbling in the dark." "I understand that feeling," Kayla admitted. "Different circumstances. My ex-husband decided fatherhood wasn't for him when Jackie was 3. But that sensation of not knowing if you're doing it right, that's universal in single parenting, I think." Their eyes met across the table, and something shifted in the atmosphere. The late evening light filtering through the office windows cast a warm glow, softening the professional boundaries between them. "Your presentation today was impressive," Xander said, changing the subject but maintaining the personal tone. "The way you incorporated local art into the design while keeping the space functional, it's exactly what we've been trying to achieve with our properties." Kayla felt a warm flush of pleasure at the compliment. "I believe hotels should tell stories," she explained, her passion for her work evident in her voice. "Every space should create an experience, a memory. Like the rooftop garden design." He nodded, pulling up the rendering on his tablet. "The way you've created different intimate spaces within the larger area, it's brilliant." As they discussed the project, their chairs gradually moved closer, heads bent together over design details. Kayla found herself noticing things she'd tried to ignore before. The subtle cologne he wore, the way his brow furrowed in concentration, the genuine enthusiasm in his voice when discussing certain features. Their working relationship developed its own rhythm. Morning meetings began with coffee. He'd somehow learned she preferred her latte with an extra shot and a hint of vanilla. She discovered he had a dry sense of humor that often caught her off guard, making her laugh despite herself. Their initial antagonism evolved into something that felt increasingly like respect, and perhaps something more. One morning, Kayla arrived to find a post-it note on her desk with a rough sketch of Villa Aurora's courtyard and a suggestion for improving the traffic flow. The note was signed simply X. She found herself smiling as she incorporated the change into her designs, appreciating how his business acumen complemented her artistic vision. They began to understand each other's working styles. Xander learned to trust Kayla's creative instincts, while she came to value his practical insights. Their meetings became longer, often stretching into the evening hours, their discussions ranging from design details to shared experiences of raising teenagers alone. "Jackie wants to apply to art school," Kayla mentioned one evening as they reviewed material samples. "Sometimes I worry about encouraging her. I know how hard it can be to make it in a creative field." Xander looked thoughtful. "You know, we have a summer internship program in our design department. She might be interested, get some real-world experience before making decisions about college." The offer was casual, but the thoughtfulness behind it touched Kayla deeply. It was moments like these that made her question her initial judgments about him. The arrogant CEO from the parking lot was being replaced by someone more complex, a dedicated father, a passionate businessman, and increasingly, a person she looked forward to seeing each day. As weeks turned into months, their professional relationship deepened into something neither of them had anticipated. They challenged each other, supported each other's visions, and gradually built something that went beyond the Villa Aurora project, a partnership based on mutual respect and understanding. What neither of them acknowledged were the moments of tension had nothing to do with work. The lingering glances, the electricity when their hands accidentally touched over blueprint reviews, the way their conversations easily slipped from professional to personal and back again. They were dancing around something neither was ready to name, both focused on maintaining the delicate balance they'd found. But as with all carefully maintained balances, it would take just one moment to tip the scales. That moment was coming, whether they were ready for it or not. While their parents navigated their evolving professional relationship, Jackie Matthews and Jeremy James were developing a friendship that would prove transformative for both families. Their shared experience in the art room incident had created a bond, and their mutual understanding of life with single parents gave them common ground that few of their peers could understand. During lunch periods at Brighton Prep, they could often be found in the art room, Jackie helping Jeremy develop his portfolio while he introduced her to other students in their grade. Their different perspectives complemented each other perfectly. Jackie's artistic vision balanced by Jeremy's practical approach to execution. "Your dad's not as scary as I thought he'd be," Jackie admitted one afternoon as they worked on a joint art project. "Mom's been coming home later because of their meetings, but she seems different. Less stressed, maybe." Jeremy looked up from his sketch, a knowing smile playing on his lips. "Dad's been different too. He actually asked about your mom this morning." Tried to make it sound casual, but he's not as smooth as he thinks he is. They shared a meaningful look, years of watching their parents navigate single life making them particularly attuned to any changes in behavior. That conversation sparked an idea that would soon become an elaborate plan. "The fall fundraiser is coming up," Jeremy mentioned casually the next day. "The one where parents have to participate in school activities. We could volunteer to be on the planning committee." Jackie's eyes lit up with understanding. "And make sure our parents get paired up for activities?" "Exactly." Their scheme began to take shape. As members of the student planning committee, they had influence over event organization. They carefully arranged the parent participation schedule, ensuring Kayla and Xander would be paired for various activities, from the charity auction to the community art installation. The first phase of their plan went into action during the fundraiser's kickoff meeting. Jackie and Jeremy watched with barely concealed amusement as their parents found themselves assigned to co-chair the main event. "We need to ensure the activities promote community engagement while maintaining the school's standards," Xander was saying, his business mindset kicking in. "And we need to make it fun," Kayla countered, her creative spirit showing. "It can't just be another stuffy school function." Their playful disagreement over the approach led to a compromise that had them working closely together, exactly as their children had hoped. The teenagers observed with satisfaction as their parents' professional rapport began showing signs of something more personal. The next phase of their plan involved study sessions. Jeremy started mentioning how helpful Jackie was with art history, while Jackie praised Jeremy's help with calculus. Soon, they had established a routine of alternating study sessions between their homes. At the Matthews apartment, these sessions often coincided with Xander dropping by to discuss project details with Kayla. The teenagers would hide their smiles as they watched their parents share knowing looks over coffee cups, their work discussions frequently drifting into personal conversations. At the James townhouse, Kayla would arrive to pick up Jackie, only to be invited in for dinner, which Jeremy had conveniently suggested his father prepare extra of. These family dinners became increasingly common, filled with easy conversation and lingering glances between the adults that their children pretended not to notice. "Did you see how Dad kept looking at your mom during dinner?" Jeremy whispered to Jackie during one such evening, as their parents cleaned up in the kitchen. Jackie nodded, suppressing a giggle. "Mom actually put on lipstick before we came over. She never does that for work meetings." In the kitchen, Kayla and Xander were engaging in their own dance of growing attraction, though neither would admit it. As Xander handed her dishes to dry, their fingers would brush, causing both to pause momentarily before continuing their task. "Jackie seems to be helping Jeremy come out of his shell," Xander commented, his voice soft. "He's always been quiet, especially since losing his mother. But lately he's been more engaged, more confident." Kayla smiled, recognizing the gratitude in his tone. "They're good for each other. Me helps Jackie feel more grounded. She tends to dream big, which I love about her, but he helps her focus on the practical steps to achieve those dreams." Their eyes met, both aware they were talking about more than just their children. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. The teenagers' matchmaking efforts extended to weekends as well. They orchestrated accidental meetings at local cafes, suggested family outings to art galleries, playing on both Kayla's professional interests and Jeremy's artistic aspirations, and created situations that required their parents to spend time together outside of work. One particularly successful scheme involved a school art exhibition, where Jeremy's work was being displayed. He had specifically requested both Kayla and his father attend, knowing his father would need help understanding the artistic elements. Watching Kayla explain the techniques and meanings behind various pieces to an attentive Xander, their children exchanged triumphant looks. The growing attraction between their parents became increasingly obvious. Xander started bringing Kayla her favorite coffee every morning, not just during their meetings. Kayla's criticisms of his CEO attitude had evolved into playful teasing, that carried an undercurrent of flirtation. Their work sessions started lasting longer, their discussions frequently straying from professional topics to personal ones. The tension came to a head one night, during a late review of the Villa Aurora plans. The office was quiet, most employees having left hours ago. Kayla and Xander were examining the final designs for the rooftop garden, their heads close together as they leaned over the blueprints. "If we adjust the seating area here," Kayla suggested, reaching to point at a section of the drawing. Xander leaned in at the same moment, their hands brushing, their faces suddenly inches apart. The air between them seemed to crackle with electricity. Xander's eyes dropped to Kayla's lips, then back to her eyes, asking a silent question. Kayla felt herself leaning in slightly, her heart raced. Then Xander's phone rang, jarring them both back to reality. Jeremy's name flashed on the screen. He was calling to check in from his friend's house where he was spending the night. The moment shattered, leaving both adults flustered and unsure. "I should probably go," Kayla said quickly, gathering her things. "It's getting late." "Right, yes," Xander agreed, running a hand through his hair. A gesture she'd come to recognize as a sign of nervousness. "We can finish this tomorrow." As they both left the office that night, the almost kiss hung between them like an unfinished sentence. Neither knew how to address it, how to move forward without risking the comfortable relationship they'd built. Back at home, Kayla found Jackie still awake, supposedly working on homework, but really waiting to hear about her evening. "You're home late," her daughter observed casually. "Too casual." "The project deadline is approaching," Kayla replied, trying to sound normal despite her still racing heart. "There's a lot to finish." Jackie watched her mother with knowing eyes. "You know, Mom, it's okay to like him. Jeremy and I wouldn't mind." Kayla looked at her daughter in surprise, seeing not the little girl she still sometimes pictured, but a perceptive young woman. "It's complicated, honey. Adults always say that," Jackie replied with teenage wisdom. "But sometimes, it's only complicated because you make it that way." Meanwhile, the next morning at the James residence, Jeremy was having a similar conversation with his father. "Dad, I see the way you look at Ms. Matthews, and I know Mom would want you to be happy." Xander sat heavily on his son's bed, touched by his words. "When did you get so wise?" "Probably around the same time you started bringing Ms. Matthews coffee every morning," Jeremy teased, making his father laugh. The teenager's observations weren't wrong. Something was building between their parents, something that went beyond professional respect or friendly cooperation. But both Kayla and Xander held back, each afraid of disrupting the delicate balance they'd achieved, each protective of their children's feelings, each carrying their own fears about opening their hearts again. What they didn't realize was that their children had already given their blessing and were working tirelessly to help them find their way to each other. The almost kiss in the office was just the beginning. Jackie and Jeremy knew their parents just needed a little more time, and perhaps a few more carefully orchestrated situations, to finally admit what was becoming obvious to everyone around them. The teenagers shared a knowing look during their next study session. Phase 1 of their plan had created the opportunity for their parents to grow closer. Now it was time for Phase 2, creating situations where their parents couldn't ignore their growing feelings for each other. The school's upcoming outdoor adventure weekend seemed like the perfect opportunity. Sorry to cut in, but I noticed 90% of our viewers watch our stories till the end, but eventually forget to subscribe. Please, if you're enjoying our story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It helps our stories get recommended to more hearts across the globe. Thank you. Now, back to our story. Brighton Prep's outdoor adventure weekend arrived on a crisp autumn morning, the air carrying the first hints of fall. Under the guise of parent chaperones needed, Jackie and Jeremy had ensured their parents were assigned to the same hiking group. The teenagers exchanged knowing smiles as they watched Kayla arrive in her fitted activewear, her usual professional attire replaced by clothes that highlighted her natural beauty. Xander's reaction to seeing Kayla in her hiking outfit didn't go unnoticed by their observant children. His usual composed demeanor slipped for a moment as his eyes tracked her movement across the parking lot. Even in casual clothes, he maintained an air of sophistication that made several other parents take notice. But his attention remained fixed on one person alone. The trail splits into two routes. The guide explained to the assembled group. The advanced trail requires 2 parent chaperones per group. Before either Kayla or Xander could volunteer for different groups, their children had already maneuvered the situation. "Mom's really good at hiking," Jackie announced, "and Miss James used to do rock climbing. Right, Jeremy?" "Yeah, Dad's pretty experienced," Jeremy agreed. The setup perfectly orchestrated. And so Kayla and Xander found themselves leading a small group of students along the advanced trail, their children conspicuously choosing to take the easier route with other chaperones. The morning sun filtered through the canopy of leaves above them, creating dancing patterns of light and shadow on the path ahead. As they walked, their conversation flowed naturally, free from the constraints of their professional relationship. Xander shared stories about teaching Jeremy to ride a bike, the pride and fear of watching his son take those first wobbly rides without training wheels. Kayla spoke about Jackie's first art show in elementary school, how her daughter had insisted on hanging her crayon masterpieces at proper gallery height. "It's strange," Kayla mused as they paused to let their group rest, "how becoming a parent changes everything. Every decision, every choice becomes about them, including the choice not to pursue relationship." Xander asked softly, his question carrying weight beyond the casual conversation. Before Kayla could respond, a student called out about spotting interesting wildlife, drawing their attention back to their chaperoning duty. But the question lingered between them, adding another layer to the growing tension they'd been dancing around for weeks. The trail became steeper, requiring more careful navigation. At a particularly challenging section, Kayla's foot slipped on loose gravel. Xander's reaction was instantaneous, his arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. The moment stretched between them, his touch burning through the thin material of her hiking shirt. "Thank you," she whispered, turning slightly to face him. Their proximity sent electricity coursing through both of them. His hand remained at her waist, steadying her, though they both knew she had already regained her balance. "Kayla," he breathed her name. The formal masks they wore at work completely stripped away. The forest around them seemed to fade, the chattering students momentarily forgotten. A call from further up the trail broke the moment, but something had fundamentally shifted between them. The rest of the hike was charged with unspoken words and lingering glances. Every accidental touch, every shared smile carried new meaning. That evening, after the students had been safely returned to their parents and the excitement of the day had settled, Xander found himself parked outside Kayla's apartment building. His phone showed a drafted text message he'd been working on for the past 20 minutes. "Would you have dinner with me?" Before he could second-guess himself again, his phone rang. Kayla's name lit up the screen. "I was just thinking about you," he answered, his voice warm. "I was thinking about you too," she replied, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "About today, about everything really. Have dinner with me," he said, finally voicing the words he'd been trying to text. Not as project partners, not as co-parents of teenagers, just us. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment, his heart stopped. "Yes," she said simply, and his world started turning again. "But Xander, I think we should tell the kids first." He agreed, and they decided to have a family dinner the next evening to discuss their decision to date. The teenagers' reactions were far from the concern their parents had anticipated. Finally, Jeremy exclaimed, while Jackie performed an exaggerated victory dance. "Wait," Kayla narrowed her eyes at their children's enthusiasm. "Have you two been planning the?" The guilty but satisfied looks on their faces told the whole story. Jackie and Jeremy explained their matchmaking scheme, from the fundraiser pairings to the strategic study sessions and the hiking trip setup. "We just wanted you both to be happy," Jeremy said simply, his words carrying the weight of years of watching his father navigate life alone. "And you're perfect for each other," Jackie added. "Anyone can see that." Xander and Kayla shared a look across the table, both touched by their children's efforts and amused by their transparency. The fact that their teenagers had seen what they'd been trying to ignore only confirmed what they already knew. This was something worth exploring. Their first official date was set for the following weekend. Xander arrived at Kayla's door with flowers. Not the usual roses, but a vibrant arrangement of wildflowers that reminded him of her free spirit. She opened the door wearing a deep blue dress that made his breath catch, her usual professional armor replaced by soft curves and vulnerable beauty. He took her to a small, intimate restaurant away from their usual business haunts. Over dinner, they finally allowed themselves to acknowledge the attraction that had been building between them. "I've been fighting this for weeks," Xander admitted, his fingers brushing hers across the table. "Every time you challenge my ideas in meetings, every time you laugh at something Jeremy says, every time I see you with your daughter, I fall a little harder." Kayla intertwined her fingers with his. "I tried so hard to hold on to that first impression of you as the arrogant CEO. But then I saw you with Jeremy, saw how you mentor your younger employees, how you listen to everyone's ideas. You made it impossible not to fall for you." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, moving from their children to their dreams, their fears about relationships after being hurt, their hopes for the future. The evening ended with a kiss that had been building since that moment in his office, tender at first, then deepening with weeks of suppressed desire. As their relationship progressed, they moved carefully, mindful of their children and their professional connections. Work meetings maintained their professional dynamic, though their colleagues noticed the softening of their interactions. At home, they began creating new family traditions: Sunday brunches with all four of them, movie nights where Jackie and Jeremy would inevitably fall asleep while their parents stayed up talking. The Villa Aurora project became a metaphor for their relationship. Each decision made together, each challenge faced as a team, their different perspectives created something better than either could have achieved alone. When Xander suggested changes to the rooftop garden design, Kayla found herself appreciating how his practical mindset enhanced her creative vision. When she pushed back on cost-cutting measures that would compromise the guest experience, he admired her dedication to maintaining the integrity of the design. Their relationship deepened gradually, built on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. They learned each other's rhythms, how Xander needed quiet time in the mornings to center himself, how Kayla processed stress through creative outlets. They discovered shared interests and delighted in their differences. Most importantly, they watched their children flourish in the expanding circle of their family. Jeremy's art found new inspiration, encouraged by Kayla's understanding of creative expression. Jackie's confidence grew under Xander's quiet support and business-minded guidance. One evening, as they sat on Kayla's balcony after a family dinner, Xander pulled her close. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" "For giving me a second chance after that terrible first impression. For seeing past the CEO to the man underneath. For showing Jeremy that it's okay to open our hearts again." Kayla turned in his arms, her hand coming up to cup his cheek. "Thank you for proving me wrong about who you were, for loving my daughter like your own, for making me believe in second chances." Their kiss under the stars felt like a promise of family, of future, of love that came unexpectedly, but grew stronger with each passing day. And somewhere inside, their children watched with satisfaction, knowing their matchmaking scheme had created something beautiful, a family forged from conflict, strengthened by understanding, and bound together by love.